everyone. Welcome back to Rally Caps. It's a podcast for artists, entrepreneurs, and everybody in between. I'm Steven.
And I'm Eric.
And today we are completing our Canon hat trick this year of episodes. We released an episode back in, I think, June, covering the C400, the release of that. Released an episode last month or July about the R5 Mark II and the R1.
Yes.
And today we are talking about the very recently released Canon C80. We're recording this a day after the announcement went live. Today is Tuesday, September 10th. So when you hear this episode on Monday, the day that you're hearing it, it's been officially 1 week since the camera came out, or at least was announced. Presented to the world
public
in all of its splendor. And I got to say, Canon is kind of crushing it on the cinema front this year. It's pretty cool. We want to talk specifically today about why this is probably the dream camera for Eric in particular. But before we get into that, hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate y'all. You, Rally Caps fans, the team that make this show possible. We love y'all. Really appreciate you being here. If you have a second, please consider subscribing to the Rally Caps YouTube channel, liking the video, dropping some thoughts about the C80 below. And if you happen to be streaming this on your commute to work this morning or just later in the day, consider leaving us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps indicate that the show is beneficial to you and pushes it out to wider audience. And that really just helps us reach a larger and larger team.
And if you like the show and have been listening to it for a while, check out our Patreon.
Yeah.
It's down in the description. You don't have to pay for our Patreon if you don't want to. You can join for free to be part of that community. And there's paid tiers if you'd like with our bonus episodes of extra innings.
Yeah.
Where we might get a little unhinged.
It is most definitely a space for unhingement. So if you want to see more of that and just help support in any way, please consider checking that out as well. Actually just dropped a post this morning teasing out the idea of a future episode. So that's just for all free members too. We'll have some more Q&A style things there to source crowd feedback. Voting. Yeah, just
democratic processes.
Yes. Getting you warmed up for November. That's just for all free members to access. So we just want to treat that as a place to have more direct contact with you and disregard some of the algorithms that might hide posts.
And we'll probably talk about politics.
No.
On the extra innings.
Definitely not.
What? Why?
Why? Thank you.
They totally want to hear about that.
They definitely want our opinions.
The politics of camera making.
We'll tap Braxton for that.
Yeah, because he thinks he can make any kind of camera.
How good a camera manufacturer he is. And if you hear any click clacking in the background, that's Braxton chiming in throughout the episode.
Hey, this is Q's furious typing. So this is the first episode where we are now officially co-working in this space and podcasting at the same time.
Yes.
So moving forward, you might hear little things here and there. Like if they're paying attention to the episode, you might hear them yell from afar their opinion. So Cyrus and Braxton are in the room today. And Gene...
Like that I actually can make a better camera?
Oh, yeah.
He thinks he can make a better camera than a lot of camera manufacturers.
All of them, actually.
Maybe I shouldn't have opened it up to let him be the peanut gallery.
All that to say, we're very excited about episodes going forward. Thanks for considering pursuing any of the avenues we just mentioned. And Eric, let's talk about the C80.
It's exciting.
It's very exciting.
We didn't know it was coming. And weirdly enough, a week prior, Canon actually reached out because they partnered with me on an R5C campaign where I did a short film with the R5C. And part of that deal was getting the R5C, which was awesome because that's now my B camera for photo. And I haven't really used it too much for video, but every time I do, I'm like, why don't I use this more for video?
You also love the 24-105 that came with it. We use it all the time.
Yes, religiously. Strictly a studio lens.
F4 is sick.
I cannot do any lenses that are more than f2.8.
It is really, I actually will say, as a podcast setup lens, actually pretty great.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a studio lens, or like. If you're, I can't really think of anything in the field I'd want to use it for.
Fashion, editorial, high strobe work in studio.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
Man, I just side tangent.
Yeah, you got the R5C via that commercial that you created, the short film.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, but
that was the initial connection to Canon.
I feel like a full frame sensor like that is what makes me go like, oh, I need to use this more. But again, it's so cumbersome because it's either I choose the 8K RAW because I don't want to shoot log 3. I want to shoot the log 2 curve, which we've discussed that before. That's the only way you can get log 2 out of that camera, except the log 3. There's a lot of confusing.
The log curves on the R5C are kind of odd.
Yeah. They don't match everything else in the Canon line.
Yep.
But if I really wanted to use it regularly, I'd have to be transcoding that 8K to 4K ProRes or something. And that's just another step in the process, which is what makes the C70, which is what we're recording on and what we have been using. We used for the documentary. I've been using for 2 years now, 2.5 years. Such a good camera. 4K DCI log 2, which is my favorite curve in Canon. But now with the C80, it's, we made that episode about the C400 and how that was essentially my dream camera. But really at that price point of $8,000, I don't know if I could justify doing that because I love that square style body. But now that my work is evolving more into YouTube and docuseries style YouTube stuff and not as much commercial stuff, I think a smaller body just like the C70 with all the specs of the C400 would be the perfect camera for me, which is why C80
when they dropped that
is a perfect camera for me.
Pretty perfect.
Yeah,
it's almost all the specs internally of the C400, just in the style of the C70.
They reached out over email and were like, we might want to work with you on a campaign. And then it was announced and I was like, oh.
So this is probably that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't reach out sooner because they usually like to have those campaigns created for launch.
The R5C was well after it was released.
That's true.
So I think it's kind of almost like a second surge.
Yeah.
Instead of that, because all of the content around the first surge of C80 with the embargo released yesterday.
Yeah. I didn't see many videos posted.
Just a
about
couple.
It, though.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting like what Sam Newton had done for the R5 Mark II, like that whole campaign, kind of showing the video specs. I was almost expecting there to be a similar style, like BTS short film, like cinematic kind of thing.
It felt like a really kind of sneaky surprise that they just dropped C80 out of nowhere.
Yeah. Also, Apple dropped all their new stuff yesterday.
Yeah.
Also, it was like a big drop day for Apple Canon fans.
Okay. Side tangent. Does it feel like these announcements are now just becoming less and less showy, or is it because they're not like the flagship new thing? It almost is. The iPhone used to be like the whatever number S.
Right.
Are these the versions of the S without the S?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to some degree, I think it's almost just a fatigue at this point.
Yeah.
It's just how can you keep up with all the new stuff and cool stuff? Because I think Apple's keynotes and everything are still like flashy as ever. Like they're some of the best produced virtual hybrid, like incredibly well produced.
Yeah.
Really anything. I mean, the video production is top notch for all their keynotes. It's unbelievable. But
they pick and choose what they want to put in those keynotes.
Yeah.
And it has to be multiple things, not just an iPhone release.
Yeah, I mean, the September one historically is always the big one because it's iPhone, Pro,
iPad.
the Pro Max. Sometimes an iPad refresh, not typically. They refresh the AirPods Pro Max, software updates for like Apple Watch, AirPods Pro.
This is what happened yesterday. Yeah.
And then new colors and software updates for like the Apple Watch Ultra as well. It's typically more like watch and phone focused around September, like the wearable everyday type things. And then, computers and iPads and all
I
that.
imagine they
the
probably
year.
do that just to like boost some sales kind of in a low.
Yeah, I actually don't know why it's always September.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always the cycle though. It's every year.
Cyclical, like give it a little boost. Check the stock today. It's probably up.
Probably. Yeah. Looks cool. There's a shutter button on the new one.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can go into the specs of the C80. From everything we've read and seen, it's exactly the C400, just in a smaller body.
Yep. So some of this will probably be redundant from that C400 episode, but the excitement really lies in the lower price point and smaller form factor, which is very interesting. As a refresher, let me just throw the glasses on real quick. Don't mind me.
Father
29
Steven.
and ancient. 6K full frame BSI CMOS sensor. Awesome. Just the fact that it's full frame, like you mentioned, is a huge jump for those who like the full frame look. I know some people kind of favor the Super 35 look that you find in the C70, but I think full frame is really nice to have.
I like full frame more. So
because you can still shoot in a Super 35 mode on this if you want to.
Yeah.
Awesome. All the codecs you could want: 6K 30, DCI 4K, 2K, Ultra HD 4K 120. In Super 35 specifically. The big thing, it has the same triple bass ISO 800, 3200, 12,800. That's super cool. I can't wait to see examples of that, like real world stuff, because I don't believe the C400 is actually out in the wild yet.
No.
It was announced back in June. I think the pre-orders will be shipping this month, actually.
Crazy.
Which is super cool. Dual SD card slots, which is fascinating.
Yep.
That they can pull off all these codecs to SD.
What was C400? Was it CF Express an SD?
You can vamp and I will check that out. I think it's CF Express.
That would make sense. But also, yeah, I could see that becoming a problem with SD cards with 4K at high bit rate and frame rates and all that. But I don't know. I think 300 meg a second cards should be able to handle that. But they're going to assuredly be coming out with even stronger SD cards moving forward with cameras like this that could handle that. I think what I've been struggling with recently is like some of the images we're getting out of the FX3 with a full frame sensor. I'm looking at and like, it just has this rich factor that the Super 35 doesn't.
Yeah.
And so now to have my same camera updated with a full frame sensor and the log curve that I love and know well, and the system that I love and know well. I'm like, that's probably going to look indecipherable.
Pretty amazing. And workflow wise will feel very similar to what you're used to.
Yeah.
Just better.
And to have the option of the same raw light, 12-bit color, and an option to shoot raw, which the FX3 does not have, like those little functions. And maybe one of the most notable changes, albeit looking kind of strange on the camera, an SDI port.
Which is amazing.
That's nuts.
That's the biggest thing that I think people asked for with the C70.
Yes.
Was
and
SDI.
They listened. They listened, and
SDI is huge.
People are so frustrated with the screen, but the one video we watched and the 30 seconds of it that we watched yesterday was right on talking about the screen and that they improved the quality of it on the swivel. And there's a locking mechanism so it doesn't kind of flop on the back when you place it back in. So that's huge, because if you wanted to build it out for production, which I might do twice a year, twice to 4 to 5 times a year, I can. I could put rails on it, I could put weights on it, I could put a monitor on it, and I can build it out to essentially be a C400.
The SDI is huge though. Like that locking connection is so much more reliable and robust than just HDMI. The C80 still has a full-size HDMI port, but the SDI is going to be like the thing that I think gets used more often than not, because people will be really excited about it. I do want to just circle back on the memory card thing. C400 has one CF Express Type B and one SD, which, as I was thinking about it more, I was like, there has to be a codec difference because of that. If they have a CF Express slot, that is one difference I'm noticing, is that the C400 can do 6K 60 versus the max of 6K 30 on the C80.
Got it.
So you could do like 6K slow motion on the C400, if that's of value to you. I don't think it really matters, but you also get like the proxy recording benefit to being able to record RAW to the CF Express slot and then proxy record to the SD simultaneously, which is cool.
But you could also proxy record to 2 SDs, maybe just not as much of a robust. I don't know. I feel like you could still do that. You could still most likely do 6K RAW onto a tough SD card and then a proxy file on the other one.
Yeah, there is simultaneous relay and proxy video recording on the C80. Yeah. Oh, and you can capture JPEG still photos on the C80. So
all right. Well, perfect hybrid camera.
Looks like I found my dream stills camera.
They said that with the FX3 too.
I love when it's just
Cyrus just looked at me and was like,
it's the funniest thing that's made mention of. Triple base ISO, 16 plus stops, a dynamic range. We'll see what the effective use is. The SDI, incredible. Everything looks genuinely so good.
So
for $5,500, which is the release price that the C70 was released at.
Also incredible. I guess I didn't put it on my negatives here, but just reading through again, we have mini XLR again, not
in body. Yeah.
So,
which I think is actually the case for the C400 as well.
Wait, really? I thought it was full XLR.
Fact checking real quick.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I'm pretty sure that was kind of one of the compromises to make the body so small.
Yeah.
Still. Control F, do a little mini search. Yeah, dual mini XLR audio
on the
inputs.
C400.
On the C400. Yep.
I feel like that's kind of a miss for that body. I have a hard time believing that there's going to be a big crowd of people that want the C400 at this point with this camera coming out.
I mean, I think the difference that we chatted about yesterday when we were surprised by this announcement is that the difference really comes down to intended use. And I think those who are on proper productions, commercial productions, like there are just I/O on the C400 that you need when you have like Video Village and you're trying to transmit out and have it's a team of people using that camera rather than a run and gun solo filmmaker. Yeah. You could use the C400 in that way also, but I think
You mean the C80?
I'm saying you still could buy the C400 and use it as like a run and gun thing if you wanted to, but I think the intended use for it is to be built out and kind of kept that way for larger productions, whereas the C80 seems to be intended to be used with one operator and make that as simple and easy a process as possible. But you also could build it out if you want to. There just aren't as many ports and video outs and all of the kind of stuff that you'd need on a larger production on the C80. You do have the SDI though, which is really nice.
I now see the C80 as what the red Komodo line was 3 years ago for so many people.
Yeah.
It was that upgrade of, it's 6K. It's Super 35 though.
That is a really good comparison actually. The Komodo X is a 6K Super 35 sensor.
But RF mount.
RF mount.
So incredibly similar camera. Mm-hmm. But now you have the dual pixel autofocus in the C80 and reliable autofocus at that.
Yep.
Which they've extended to now they're like it's going to the corners of the sensor as well. It's not just like the 80% on the inside, but like they're extending it out. Face tracking is more robust. You have more options to switch to different faces if it grabs the wrong one. Autofocus has never been better. And I think a lot of filmmakers scoff at autofocus, and I completely disagree because it just totally depends on the line of work you're doing. If you are working in sports, have to. Like, and what we do with running, autofocus is a must. Like, if you're moving, your body's moving while you're filming, like having to pull focus without somebody else.
A lot of documentary work really benefits from just having it at least.
It saves you one extra person for like then maybe a 5 to 10% miss rate. And you're like, I can handle that.
Right. I think the funny thing about the autofocus argument is like, well, why not have it? Because you don't have to use it. Yeah. Throw on whatever your favorite vintage lenses, pull focus yourself, have someone else pull focus for you. You can always go that route, but you can also throw an autofocus capable lens on and have brilliant autofocus. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's kind of nice to have it when you do need it.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like the snobby filmmaker perspective. It's like, I don't even want a camera that even has autofocus.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, well, cool. Do your thing.
Great.
Go for it. Yeah, that's fine.
I'll watch your autofocus stuff.
Yep.
Unless they're like just constantly working on 10-person teams, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like all of the best lenses need to have pulled focus.
Yeah.
Like none of the best lenses are autofocus.
No.
We all know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just funny. One thing I want to actually point out about the C82, some ergonomic differences. It's only slightly larger and slightly heavier than the C70. Again, virtually the same thing, but you already mentioned the screen, which is a huge upgrade, even though it shouldn't be a huge upgrade. It's nice for those who use the C70 and suffered through that screen. The bottom plate of the camera actually has been reshaped a little bit so that the actual quarter 20 threads and 3/8 threads are in a much better configuration than before. On the C70s, they're all in one vertical line on the bottom, and there's no, I don't know if you looked at this,
I just have a bottom plate on mine, so I have like this,
Yes, but now you can have a bottom plate and lock it in two places rather than just one. Because the C70...
You keep talking.
Yeah. It only has you can just... You can't really see it if it's on a tripod right now, but I'll show you just the bottom.
Because mine never wiggle. Like it's locked in. I think I have 2 points on it right now. Like the bottom plate on the Condor Blue base plate never budges on the C70.
Which is, yes, that's because it's going across 3 in the vertical. That's where it's locking in. But now you have an additional...
Oh, so if you didn't have a bottom plate, you could put just a tripod plate in with 2 screws.
And be fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is nice. Just like another like mounting difference, which I think is really great.
You could literally just rock the camera as is with its top handle, which is also something I want to talk about. It looks like they completely reconfigured the top handle, which was my least favorite thing about the camera on the C70. It just felt like sandpaper. And
yeah, I don't think they've changed the texture for what it's worth.
Oh, okay.
But the shape of it is better.
It is.
Yes.
It seems like it had more thought put into it.
And on that note too, well, actually 2 other things. One, the thumbstick on the back has been redesigned. Much better placement, much larger also than the tiny little nub that accidentally gets pressed all over the place. And on the top handle note, it's no longer a combo hot shoe and thread. The threaded part is separate on the top just for mounting handle and interface. And then the hot shoe is actually back here now. And it's one of the intelligent hot shoes. So you can put audio in and just run it directly through the hot shoe rather than plugging anything in. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to do that, I know Sony and other brands are creating those mics that just work. And I think actually Canon has their own proprietary microphones too, just intelligent hot shoes where you just slot it into the hot shoe.
Did not know that.
No 3.5 mil cable required. It's just running audio directly through the hot shoe, which is super
fantastic.
cool. Yeah. So if you ever found yourself in a position like that, you could just rock that.
Less cables.
Without even having like the mini XLR plugged in on the side.
And to that point too, if you had a setup like that, I think with as much as people dunk on the swivel screen on the C70, if this one's better and doesn't get loose over time, swivel screen's actually incredible if you're filming yourself.
Right.
It just is.
It feels like a very versatile and like higher end kind of YouTuber camera, like the ability to film yourself, but also have this incredible image quality that just can be used.
Camera.
Yeah, it's a proper cinema camera. I mean, like we love the C70s.
Right.
They're incredible cameras, like truly incredible. The image out of them are amazing. All the ergonomic gripes aside, and the swivel screen and everything, like we made some stuff that we're really proud of.
Yeah.
They're incredible. And I think this is only going to capitalize on that. And like to your point, we've never really been the biggest fan of the DSLR style body. It's fine. You like it more than I do. But I think in this context where it really feels like it can be used just as is, because the screen is actually going to be reliable.
Right.
And because you could run that type of audio where there's a world where you put a lens on this and a microphone and you have 0 cables and you're just using that.
That's crazy.
No cables anywhere.
That's actually really
lens,
crazy.
mic, and you're good. That could be the most minimal setup that you have with it. And then you could build it out to however big you want it to be also.
And then also with that, with say the 15 to 35 that I love having on the C70 all the time with image stabilization, you could walk the streets with a setup like that. And it's very small relatively for the punch you're getting out of that image, especially now full frame.
Yep.
And 6K, you could punch in on a 4K timeline.
I didn't even think about this, but to that point, I'm so happy they didn't add IBIS or anything either to this, because you're just getting the really good lens stabilization that you get in a lot of Canon lenses without the wobble that IBIS causes.
And that's also why I love the R5Cs, because you don't have the IBIS like the R5 does. And if you have stabilization on the lens, it's pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, no, internal lens stabilization is excellent.
Yes.
That's not where any of the wobble that you see in the videos that talk about wobble come from. It's always from the IBIS itself.
Right.
It's a really compelling package. You mentioned the 15 to 35 though. You've loved that focal length on the Super 35 sensor.
Yeah.
This would be a true 15 to 35 now on the C80. Do you think you'd change lenses?
I don't, because I do always feel like I want the 15 to 35 to be a bit wider on the C70.
Really? Okay. Because it's a 24 to 50-ish or 22 to 50 equivalent, I think.
Every time I have that lens all the way to 15, I always want it to be a little bit wider.
Okay. But do you think you would miss having the range on the other end?
Yeah. Probably.
Like, would the 24 to 70 be interesting?
Yeah. Or like which one is it? 28 to 70, the F2.
Oh my gosh. The 28 to 70 would be that's probably.
Does it have stabilization?
It doesn't. That's the thing. It's really intended as like a stills lens.
Could be interesting though.
Yeah.
Especially on full frame.
I think that I wouldn't be surprised if that lens weighs more than this camera body does.
Yeah, it would be pretty dumb.
That lens is
carry
so
around.
big.
No, I really don't know, because so similar to other cameras in the past, it reminds me of when I got a 4K camera and was still editing in 1080 timelines. I have the 15 to 35, and if I really wanted to get more reach in a pinch, I'll just switch to 6K and punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
and it's full frame, so that's going to feel like 4K 35.
Yeah. And you do still have the option to shoot in a Super 35 mode on the C80 if you ever wanted to.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
That's another way to hack the system.
Yeah, if you ever need to, you can totally switch back to that familiar range at any point.
But doing it in 6K will probably get you the depth that you want with digitally punching in versus doing the Super 35 mode and getting the reach that way in 4K. You know what I mean?
It's more or less, isn't it kind of the same thing? If you shoot,
it's still sampling from
6K
the same sensor
and punch in versus punch in the sensor and just have what you have.
I don't know.
I don't either, actually. Because I've been curious when people talk about that on a stills front. They're like, oh, just shoot in the crop mode and you get like a second lens, basically. I'm like, well, isn't that just the same thing as cropping later?
In post.
Because it is.
Right.
And I think when you shoot...
It's not changing the sensor.
No, it's not changing the lens. It's not. You don't get a second lens by doing that. You're just pre-cropping. I think even when you shoot in a crop mode like that...
So we're just saying the same thing, basically.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, just crop later. It's like, no, I have a second lens. I'm like, no, you don't. You're shooting in a crop mode.
Well, I think what's interesting in that sense then is like, then maybe you should just switch to 6K and leave it at full frame, because then you have more options in post.
Right, yeah.
You could go wider if you want to.
Rather than committing to the Super 35.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the stills thing, when you import them even into Lightroom, it'll show. Because like we've seen that when we've shot thumbnails for the show even. We'll usually switch to 16:9 in the R5 just so we can see what the image will actually look like in a thumbnail capacity.
Right.
But when you import them into Lightroom, it still gives you the full photo.
Yeah.
It's just showing you the lines.
Right.
It's funny. What are you most excited about with this camera? Because the C70 has been like, I mean, these are your cameras.
Yes.
These two C70s. They've been your ride or die for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What gets you the most excited about the C80? We talked about all the specs, everything, and some of the use cases that we think would be really nice for it. But for you in particular, what gets you excited about this?
It's the dark horse. It's the triple base ISO. It's,
cool.
If that is good, that's what got me so excited about the C400.
Yeah.
I don't care so much about 6K. Mm-hmm. I feel pretty indifferent about that. I would actually probably shoot 4K more often.
Okay.
Because I just don't have the need for the 6K. I feel like that's just too much data when I'm not going to be utilizing it for all of its qualities.
For sure.
I'd probably shoot a lot of my commercial work in 6K and then have the versatility, because no one's watching stuff in 6K. Everyone's watching stuff in 4K still, and probably will be for a very long time. So the triple base ISO, I think, because I don't feel as comfortable with the C70 and lower light.
Yep.
So if we could get a clean image at 12,800 and a full frame sensor and primes, then I'm like, okay. Because we shot the short with the FX3 recently on my channel when we shot virtually everything at night. And it was rock solid, and we felt really comfortable doing so. I feel like when I see that image and see it as clean at that high base ISO in the dark, I'm going to feel really, really stoked about the camera.
Yep.
And then just upgrades, like having SDI when I want to put a monitor on the thing, to just feel more confident in that, and a screen that is going to be locked in better. Yep. But again, just having options, like I can do 6K if I want to. Is it 6K RAW or is it only 4K RAW?
It's 6K RAW.
Yeah. So that's also really exciting. Yeah,
the highest, best codec that you can get out of this thing is a Cinema Raw Lite 12-bit UHD 6K at 24 frames per second, or 30 frames per second as well.
Those are, it's really just the triple base.
52, yeah. Yep.
Because what got me excited about the C400 was the body shape. But the more I thought about it once this camera was released, and what we discussed is that's not my line of work. And it would be really cumbersome to have to carry the C400 around fully built out all the time.
Right. Yeah. No built-in screen over there. Actually, no. Is that true? I think there is a touchscreen on the back of the C400.
I think it's like the C200 was.
That's what it is.
With the little, which is pretty cumbersome.
It is, and it's just a much bigger camera package overall. Great for the right people, but that's what we talk about often with gear on this show. Is like all gear has an intended use and intended audience, and it just so happens that this C80 seems to be the right one for you.
The triple base and then the full frame.
Yes, full. Yeah, yep. This almost seems, I know for your run channel in particular, you and Cyrus have been using his FX3 quite a bit,
Yeah.
which is a full frame camera with dual native ISO at 800 and 12,800, much like the C80 has, but it's 800, 3200, and 12,800. You've been loving the low light performance on that and loving the full frame look of it. This, I think the extra benefits that we get here for, obviously an extra cost associated, but the internal NDs and really good audio ports built right into the camera are pretty huge upgrades, which kind of leads me to compare this to the FX6 quite a bit because it has the same dual native ISO, full frame sensor, internal ND, audio ports that are technically not on the camera body itself, but attached via the top handle. Almost the same price point too.
This is like everything that people love the FX6 for in a smaller body.
In a smaller body.
A little bit better.
Yeah.
If the 3 ISOs are as good.
Yeah. Higher resolution, audio ports inside the body.
Yep.
Triple bass. If that ends up being extremely useful, it's probably going to be like 812,000. Raw. Which, I'm actually unsure if the FX6 can shoot raw. I think it can do that outputted somewhere else. But this makes me more curious than ever to see what the FX6 Mark II ends up looking like. I said that in the C400 episode as well to see what Sony's response would be.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm like especially interested now with this price point and the amount of value packed into it, what their response will be with an FX6 Mark II.
I feel like Sony would be better off to do a different version of the FX3.
Yeah.
Because what makes that special is, like, especially for the running stuff, I don't know if we would switch to shooting on the C80 because
for sure
Cyrus can fly the FX3 on a gimbal pretty easily. And if we wanted to switch, how much marginally better would it be to have the C80 in that situation?
Yeah.
He has internal ND, which could be nice for sure, like run and gun without him having to mess with the variable on the front, especially as light shifts as I'm running mile to mile, like. And
he's doing that all one man too, while riding on a bike usually. So yeah.
But it's never really an issue when he's shooting.
Yep.
Currently, and I don't know. I mean, we could test it for sure, but it almost feels like it would just be heavier for him.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying Cyrus can't handle that.
Oh, dude. Of anyone in the studio, massive. Dude can handle it. I watched him do 100 pull-ups in a row yesterday. It was crazy. It took him 4.5 seconds. It's amazing. So in that case, then FX3 still seems like a really good camera for that style of work.
For sure.
Yeah.
If I were on the bike, I would probably fly the C80 just because I know the system better.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
the
marginal difference of it being a little bit heavier.
Right.
I'd probably just go with that.
Yeah. But even then, it's comes down to intended use of the camera too. Like the FX3 really is kind of meant for situations like that.
Right.
Where the form factor gives you the option to fly those things pretty easily. It's more lightweight, still get an absolutely incredible image out of it. And then for larger things that you'll be doing for either YouTube or docu-style things, C80 is really clutch. Or even just like the talking head that you do post run.
Yeah.
Yep. Dang. It's a very exciting camera.
Yeah, because the C70s in studio, I'd much prefer shooting those talking heads on these cameras because it's much more complicated with the FX3 audio-wise. Because we could just run whatever audio into the mini XLR converter to XLR, and it's great. I just unplug the NTG and run an XLR to wherever I'm sitting and do a talking head. So in that sense, if you were just to use one camera for the full production, this would be killer.
Yeah. No, it's an extremely compelling camera package. And I think, again, for the price point, it offers so much bang for buck. Like it's pretty incredible. I'm very pleasantly surprised that they didn't really change much between the C400 and C80 as far as internal capabilities are concerned. The only difference I'm noticing so far, and this is just at first blush, just that 6K 60 versus 30, which I think is niche enough to not really care about too much. Other than that, they didn't do any of the kind of classic Canon cripple hammer stuff that people talk about of just like, they're intentionally downgrading within certain parts of their lines. Like, no, like this is really, it seems like it's intended to be a very versatile camera for dock style run and gun solo teams, but also could be an excellent B cam to a C400 too. Get all the same capabilities for the most part to run that next to a C400. It's pretty nice for $2,500 less.
Yeah, if we do a big production, I'd probably just have the C80 as my camera and then rent out a C400.
It's like the A cam.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Perfect.
It's a really cool combination. Way to go, Canon. That's pretty.
Wait, can you say it again?
Way to go, Canon.
Just one more time.
Hey, way to go, Canon. Rooting for the home team over here.
Okay, cool.
Hey, their cinema stuff this year has been excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very exciting to see them actually like listen and iterate accordingly. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankful that I didn't.
Pre-order the
No.
C400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also thankful that my decision to stay with Canon was
starting to
pay off.
Starting to pay off. Yeah. Yep.
I'm just like holding on to every last hope.
Yep.
While everybody switches.
Yeah. If I had a need for a camera like this in my own personal work, I would be strongly considering Canon again, if only. But it's a
You just use mine.
perfect. It makes me want to be in Canon again, seeing this little guy. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Dang. Cool.
Guess we're a camera review podcast now.
Dang. We kind of are a little bit right
Sometimes,
now.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes. It's. I mean,
Go to any other brand and I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know.
I don't know anything, but Canon, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, legacy users over here.
Yeah.
Been in it for a long time. So.
And some of the people that have stuck with it for a lot of trials and tribulations.
Yep. Yeah. This is it's very compelling. That's cool. I'm excited to see this in person soon. I guess the last note is that this is shipping end of November. November 29th is the estimated ship date on the C80s. So we'll maybe even do a follow-up episode in the next couple months if you do pre-order it and get it kind of in one of the earlier batches of shipments. I think it'd be cool to do a little follow-up and even record part of this episode like on the C80 to like see the difference or something like that between the C70s that we're currently using.
Just like shoot 50 wide open on the full frame just to see how beautiful
Whole
it is
podcast in 1.2.
Yep. And
yeah.
forgot what I was going to say.
The 50 will be a 50
the reason
also.
they want to do a campaign with someone like me in the coming 2 months is to try to just get more pre-orders and on the thing if it's not going to ship till November, just to see examples of people in different niches using it different. Because like, you know me, I'm going to use the camera. I'm probably going to shoot wide open on the full frame sensor. I'm going to throw grain all over it. And then be like, see, looks like cool cinema, indie stuff.
Looks like cool film.
Look, we're cool.
Look, we're airy now.
It.
Buy it, please.
Buy it.
Please buy it.
It's as good as Komodo. It will be. That's the thing.
I'm very
curious. It's gonna be gorgeous. Yep. Maybe they'll lend me one of the Cinema RF lenses as well.
Oh, I forgot.
I could ask for that.
I forgot that they have
because they could totally
RF.
just loan.
Yeah,
one or two to me.
They released those not too long ago, like the RF mount Cines. Yeah,
and then actually just pull focus on the short that I make with it. That'd be cool.
Dang.
That gets me excited too.
I'm looking at Canon with hearts in my eyes again. It's kind of wild.
Baby.
Dang. That's very cool. Okay. Well, there's our third Canon episode of the year. That also means 3 releases this year from them. Pretty huge releases.
Yeah, that's very interesting. 'Cause Sony's been pretty quiet. So I'm sure they're just gearing up to like drop the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they usually release something in September also.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there's no rumors or anything? You haven't been keeping up with it?
I haven't really been keeping up with. I haven't been keeping up with much tech rumor stuff in general. I usually like to keep a finger on that pulse.
Yeah.
Haven't really had the time lately.
my
But yeah, it is really it's cool to just see this type of value push the needle forward for everyone. Because something like this is really cool in and of itself, and it also means that it's going to force competitors to also raise the bar a little bit too. So there's always a bit of a push and pull across the whole industry, but I'm excited to see what kind of innovation this launch pushes.
I think it's also cool that these innovations are just kind of ruining the argument across brands, where people are like, my brand's better than yours. It's like, well, now that there's cameras that exist like this, you're just like, if you actually know what you're talking about, you're not going to argue about that kind of stuff. It's really silly.
It comes off as very childish. Like at the end of the day, everyone, literally every camera manufacturer is making good cameras right now.
Every new camera is going to kill.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's great for us, the consumers.
Perfect.
Like we have a plethora of options available. And they're all great. And really what it comes down to, like we've said over and over again, is your personal preference and your personal needs. You've got great options regardless of what ecosystem you're in. And it's very cool to see this type of competition and value being added to the camera world right now.
No doubt.
Dang. I am genuinely very excited to see the C80.
Now I'm really excited to get my hands on it and see what kind of images we can make.
Yeah, that's very cool. Dang. Is your current monitor, this is a random aside, SDI compatible? You bought the Cine 7 from Bean?
Off of Bean, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, nice. That's awesome. That'll be the first time we actually get to use that. That's sick.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, with that setup, it's going to be, I feel it's going to be one of those moments we have it fully set up. And if I could get a loaner Cine lens
Big
and
old
everything,
lens. Yeah.
it would be like one of those like, oh my goodness.
Do you own V-mounts?
No,
Would you get them for something like this?
probably not.
Probably not.
Because I would just use them so infrequently
Yeah.
that, I mean, there's, again, being in the environment we're in.
Yeah.
Hey, Brax, can I borrow yours? Hey, like.
That's true.
Or I'll just rent it or whatever, for the 3-day production we have for this commercial job. Yeah. I don't care to house any more stuff like that in here if I'm not going to use that regularly, because I'm just not shooting weddings in the same capacity. And even if I was, the chunky batteries on these systems are fine.
They're so good.
Like, I actually don't feel the need to do V-mount. Even like in Colorado when I was running that 7-inch monitor, I was fine with the batteries on monitor for the whole trip. And the battery powering the camera.
Yeah.
I barely had to switch stuff out. So
yeah, the BP 60s.
They're insane.
Are pretty unbelievable. And they did refresh those batteries as well, which was a refresh back in June, I think, is when they first announced them for the C400, but that's still relevant today for the C80 as well. Just a refreshed, they added like an N, so it's like the BP A30 and 60N, which I'm sure will just get better.
People don't really talk about either. Like, that's a huge benefit to the the FX3 versus this conversation too, because if you're going for, say, a whole marathon and recording that, then you might need to switch batteries. Whereas if you have one of the chunky ones in there, you're like, nah, it's gonna go for the whole day, basically.
Yeah, to have batteries that good for a system that small already is very compelling. Dang, so cool. I'm happy that I could end this year of Canon episodes on a more positive note, because I was quite down on the R5 Mark II and R1. So this feels nice to redeem that a little bit.
Okay, now just pivot.
What
are you excited about for the rest of the year for rally caps?
Ooh. See, okay. This is where I was going to actually suggest we talk about something like this for extra innings today also. We can get more specific on some stuff for the episode of extra innings. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll have...
And political.
We'll have... no, definitely not. No. Brax is definitely not allowed
you
over
don't like
here
that
joke. I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Rally caps rest of the year. 100th episode is the thing I'm just so laser focused on. November. Yeah, which is super exciting. We'll probably want to brainstorm some of that stuff on the Patreon, honestly, with free members. Like, that's not a plug to be like, well, if you want to be a part of the 100th episode, you got to pay us. It's like, no, we're going to just have, I think, more conversation about what the 100th episode should be for all free members of the Patreon on there. Free and paid, obviously. But I want to make that one like really, really special. Like a long episode, like 2-3 hours kind of thing. Yeah. Much longer than our typical episode, and almost have like segments throughout it too.
Yeah. A show. Yeah. Should we wear suits?
We could. That'd be hot. Last time we wore suits for a video, we weren't recording audio.
It would be November.
That's true.
Or late October.
We could just open the windows.
Perfect.
Yeah.
They don't open. I tried opening them the other day.
Wait, what?
I don't know. We'll have to look into it.
Okay, cool. It's like I just opened the one yesterday to switch out the AC unit.
You did? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
They have locks.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's a 2-person job.
When they're locked, they don't open.
I did the locks, and then there's like a second lock. I think.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It takes 2 people to open.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Yeah. It's yeah.
You should have seen me by myself the other day. It was one of those like, I think I just got a hernia.
I made a post about this on the Patreon earlier, actually, but something we floated out that I'll kind of tease here now. The idea of doing a Hot Ones style segment on Rally Caps. So bringing like all of this new studio, like 4 or 5 of us up here and like doing a Hot Ones style segment during that 100th episode could be really fun. It could also be its own standalone episode.
Yeah.
And so those are the conversations we want to have
Or
with you guys. It's like,
one.
it could be a recurring one, but like, do we make that a part of a larger thing? Do we make it its own standoff thing? And regardless, like, what do we make the 100th episode about? And how do we make that like the most special thing possible? We also have some exciting guests coming up too, which
now we have internet
really
up here.
Yes, yeah, which is really good. We can do some remote interviews. We have
Do you want to sneak any of those people? Or?
We could sneak.
This is where you're like, we could sneak it on extra innings.
We could, but no. We'll be nice. We'll be nice. I mean, they're coming out soon anyway, so it's only like a small heads up. But we are interviewing our friend Joshua Martin, aka Cine Dailies. He is 1/4 of Sunny 16. Our friends over at Sunny 16. We'll be interviewing him on Monday. Yeah, this upcoming Monday.
So probably following episode.
Yep. Yeah. So that'll be in September as well. Nice to do in-person guest episodes when we can, but yeah, some of the remote guest episodes will also be very, very fun. We still have a couple leads to chase down and some kind of like open
Soft
threads
yeses.
and soft yeses.
But now we can confirm and follow up because we have internet.
Yes. Yeah. Which is huge.
It's really reassuring and cool to hear some people with like influence and larger audiences that listen to this show pretty regularly. It's very flattering, very cool, and I'm really excited to connect with those people. Just because you always have so much in common doing the same grind of creative stuff, and just really interested to hear their input. I'm really excited to have like an online guest as well up here. It'll be a different flavor and a different vibe.
Yep.
But yeah, all really exciting things. And then also downloads they've just been crazy.
Yeah, yesterday was a crazy download. I think it was the most downloads of a episode in a single release day we've ever had, which was very exciting and very cool to see in the YouTube version as well. It's going wild. So yeah, the guest episodes will be fun. We'll have to do a little test because I think I figured out a way to route our computers into the Rodecaster so that we can actually monitor our audio and their audio at the same time, despite the fact that they're remote, because we did interview our friend Sam Elkins earlier this year. And that was tricky only in that in order to, for those unfamiliar with kind of podcasting and audio and all this stuff, you don't want any kind of, any 2 sources of audio playing back together at the same time. So for example, we can't record this while also having a laptop open and listening to the guests and responding to them that way because their audio is going to be in our microphones.
Double audio.
Which is very bad. It makes for like the worst echo imaginable. So what we could do with this, for Sam, we just put headphones in and kind of suffered that weird kind of underwater, like you hear yourself talking, but it's all muffled and you don't know how loud you're talking. And then you become self-conscious about how loud you're talking and then you spiral and you're supposed to be hosting a show. And that's not a great way to do that when you're just completely lost in your own sauce. So this way we could USB-C into the Rodecaster and then monitor their audio via the board because their audio basically like the Zoom call or whatever would come up as its own input on the board. We could have a level for that just to monitor. And then they're recording their own audio. We take it, sync it up later, and we have a super clean source of audio that allows us to actually like participate in the conversation fully, which is really exciting. So still need to test that, but it looks really promising.
Maybe we just put a TV. We just put a monitor up.
That'd be kind of fun.
That actually would be sick.
Yeah. What's up? That's good. And then put like a GoPro down at that end of the table.
Looking at our stupid faces this way.
Howdy.
Into the abyss of white wall over here. That's not a set at all.
This is our WAG flag.
Yeah. It's just
a white wall.
Just a light pointed into a wall, bouncing light back on us.
It's working pretty well so far,
good.
I will say. Yeah, and it's a nice way to kind of declutter that side of the space too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll continue this rambling over on in extra innings. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you listening, watching, whatever avenue you chose. Again, if you have a second, we'd love if you subscribe to the channel and left a rating or review on
Comment down below,
Spotify,
too.
Apple Podcast. Yeah, leave
What are
a
your thoughts
review.
on the C80?
Yeah, are you getting a C80?
Probably.
Are you not?
Probably not.
There's one of two answers that you have to that question.
Probably and probably not.
Yep. We'd like you to leave that answer below. So, probably or
Probably not.
it's pretty easy over here at Rally Caps. Awesome. We love you guys.
Love you, team.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.